Hi guys, I'm RANDOLPHS and welcome to my fly tying channel. If you haven't already done so, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. That'll keep you up to date with everything as I upload it. My channel already contains hundreds of videos covering a wide range of both patterns and techniques, from the basic to the more advanced. So without delay, let's get on with the show. Hi there guys, welcome back. So tonight we're going to tie the BLM, and this is a pattern by GERRY Randolph, and this would be sort of like an emerger, so something like a MAYFLY or possibly a CADDIS. So there are a number of unusual materials etc. in this fly, so we'll crack on ahead with it. So we're using a standard dry fly light wire down-eyed hook here, and I'm going to use a white tying thread. Snip that off. So what I'm going to do is to tie in the last thing first, which might sound a little bit unusual, but it will help to neaten up our head. So this fly actually has two antennae of black bear bristles or bear hair. So I'm going to tie that in now, because it means that I can just fold them back at the end and I won't have extra bulk in my head. So we're looking to tie these in that they'd be the length-ish, maybe a little bit more than the body. So we're going to take our tying thread back up towards the head, and I'm going to tie in these two black bear hairs pointing forward, and take my tying thread back down the shank a little bit and trim that off. So next we're going to tie in the tail, and the tail on this fly is a phyllo plume. And you might ask, well, what is a phyllo plume, or where am I going to find a phyllo plume? So most larger feathers will have another little feather coming out of their base. So this happens to be just a hen, pheasant feather from any of them, any of these sort of plate type feathers. So this bit's still attached to a little bit of skin, so you can see. So if we take our feather and have a look, right at the base there's an extra little feather coming out, and that is your phyllo plume. And these are very handy. They're almost like a little tiny marabou feather, and they're very useful for creating sort of nymph type bodies. Gives that little bit of extra movement, or where you're having sort of an emerger or a dry fly, to have this hanging out the back, this little bit will dip below the surface and give you the idea of something that is emerging. So we'll take our tying thread down to the rear of the hook and attach our little phyllo plume there. Tie it in and trim it off. So the rib on this fly is next, and for the rib it uses a brown tying thread. So I'm going to use either a 6/0 or an 8/0 tying thread, and tie that in and take it down to the point where we tied in our tail, and snip off any of the extras. So the fly now calls for a white body which is covered in a tan thin skin. So I don't have tan thin skin, but what I do have is a condom. So I have cut a sort of band off the condom, and I am going to tie that in. Now what I do is I would tend to tie it in further forward with these sort of materials, because they're quite difficult to tie in And once you get it caught, then what you can do is you can put it under tension, pull it back, and then tie back over it. And what that'll do is will make your body a hell of a lot neater. We're going to use our tie-in thread then to sort of slightly build up the body a little bit. I happen to be using a very thin tie-in thread here. This is a gel spun. So how do we get this tan? What we're going to do is take a marker and put a light coat of that sort of tan colored marker on the condom here, and then as we wrap that, it should give us that sort of tan effect, because it's, as it stretches, there's very, very stretchy stuff, as it stretches the actual color thins out and you can get this nice almost see-through tan coloration. Take that to the front and again stretch it forward and tie over it. Will make your tie-in much neater. Then under tension I'm going to pull it back on itself and I'm going to take a few wraps backwards over that and then come back off the front of the material again so that it doesn't kick my tie-in thread off itself, and then cut it while it's under tension, and that'll give you a really neat tie-in. And then we'll take our brown tie-in thread and rib the body with that. I'm going to come forward in roughly even turns there, say 5 turns, and tie that off as well. So thorax on this fly, again tan. So I'm going to use this is an Orvis fine and dry dubbing that I'm using, and I'm using a tan colour in that. So you only need a very small pinch of dubbing. So I'll put that on and twist it onto my tie-in thread and create a little thorax of that. And now I'm going to put a hackle on. So for the hackle we're going to use a softish brown, or in this case I'm going to use like a little furnacey sort of a coloured hackle. And a lot of times you'll have seen me tie in hackles by their tips, and in this case I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tie it in by its base and then just put on 1.5 or 2 turns of hackle, tie it forward, flip it back, tie over it and snip that off. And I'm actually going to leave that underneath, so I'm going to just take my scissors and snip off the fibres that are above the shank. So last material to go on now is going to be the CDC. So I'm using 2 tan CDC plumes and I'm just going to place them back to back. And we're only going to be using the very tips of these. So I'm just, once I have them matched up, I'm just going to pinch the 2 tips together and strip off a lot of the stuff that I don't want. Then I'll set that up on top. And they're not overly long, sort of wing buds or whatever you want to call them here. I'm just going to match it up to roughly the back of the fly. I'm going to split one each side and just tighten up onto that. Then pull up these tag ends of it, trim that off, and to finish the fly I'm just going to flip back our 2 bare fibres from earlier, the first things we tied in, and then wrap over that. And as you can see then, that keeps them back, but I don't have to start tying in those at this stage and creating bulk, and then trying to cut them off and trying to make it neat. So there's essentially no tag ends on these because I've flipped them back. All of the tying of them was the very original bit underneath everything. Time to finish our fly. Use a whip finish tool if that's what you usually use. I've never got round to using one. So that's our fly tied. We'll just varnish the head here. I'm going to use a Vineyard Cellier because it's nice and thin, and a toothpick. Pull all this stuff back and just get a little bit of our varnish onto the head, and that is our fly tied. So that's the BLM. So hopefully you like what you see. So if you did, give us a like, subscribe, tell your friends, check out the other videos I have on the channel, and until next time, tight lines, and thanks for watching.